be doing now, let me give you an introduction on the security and give you first of all the agenda. We're going to be reviewing first of all how to manage users and user groups, then implement and configure basic security, set up your profiles and role centers where you will be assigning for different activities that your user have. And then also is very important, how do we audit if any user create a change in your system, if they create or deleted something and so on. So we can, yes, audit that as well. And I'm going to show you at last how to do that, and where you can, after this webinar, you should be able to learn the first and use the first tools so you can start working with the security that we have. So first of all, an enterprise business solution must have built-in security. So that helps protect your database and information. So basically that's the reason for having this, all right? So maintain that in your as the main goal, and it contains from unauthorized access. It must also allow you to specify what authorized users are allowed to do in the database, such as what data can read and modify. The following webinar will be helping you to understand and improve the security of Business Central. So what do we should do whenever we start working in our implementation or any type of work where we are going to, we need to add the users, we need to create sometimes some groups, and well, that's also part of the basic security, of course. Now I will clarify, because in the cloud, we are also working with Office 365 and on-premises as well could be done, but mainly we use your server information with Active Directory, so we can work with these two flavors. They are quite similar at the end. It's all about the source of your legacy source of users, and well, that's how do we manage them. First of all, how do we include users? So the whole idea is that in order to connect to Business Central in the cloud first, users must exist within your Office 365 subscription before you can add them to Business Central. Why? Because I need to explain you how it works. In the cloud, everything will be attached to a Office 365 account from where we now work with different extensions and tools. This means that instead of having one overall installation in a server, now you add different applications to one core that is Business Central. And then, so it has a way of course, adding users. So which is mainly we have an administration center. I'm going to show you that in a moment. And second, before a user can access to Dynamics Business Central on premises, which is when we have an installation in your facilities, your server, and you must have created, in order to add them, you must have created them as users in Dynamics NAV Business Central. And to create and modify users, you can use the Microsoft Dynamics Windows client. So we install a client in your own server, basically from where we actually just work. Basically, it's just that. Also, we can use a web client and what we call the PowerShell CMDlets. PowerShell is basically a platform to make some specific coding where we manage also Business Central on-premises activities. Instead of using a regular client, we are actually going to be giving instructions directly to NAV to create companies, add users, to add specific instructions. But I'm going to keep it simple, not going to go through that at this point. So we are learning, we are in the very beginning of this, so hopefully this can be easy to understand in first place. We are going to use now the Office 365 user management account. I'm going to be opening a browser, and I'm going to just open my 365 account. This is in the cloud, of course, and hosted by Microsoft. We have a Business Central environment. So basically what I'm doing is just accessing to my account, my regular, let's say, email, now where we have all these different applications. If you have a Microsoft account, this is what you will be finding, where we are going to be adding the Dynamics 365 and Administration Center. Here, what we do is we manage all our apps. So one of them, and the most important for today, is because we have an administration application specifically for users, groups to manage all the people that will be able to enter, access, and make use of your applications, right? So this is quite different from the previous functionality. So, well, this is what we call the extensions. And here in the user management tool in this administration center, the whole idea of working here is just to log in, right? First to your Microsoft account, but you need to like this and just adding a new user, simple as, all right? So we are going to assign a specific email to any user with the specific information, personal information, and by creating a password, you will be able to deliver an access to the environment. Basically, it's just that. So it's quite convenient since we have an administration center where we are going to be handling. Now we work with licenses for the products that you purchase in the cloud. And the idea of working with this licenses, in this case, well, we just need to add to this user a Dynamics 365, the country, of course, so some specific language features can be also considered, and as well the localization for some functionality. We have some others. You can add Office for the users who want to download to their computers. So remember, everything is in the cloud and some applications can be downloaded. So also Office is integrated 100% with Business Central, right? Now, in this case, we have one setup for administrators. Administrators for us in this specific part of security can manage all the applications without issues, and just general information about the specific activities that this new user in our company is handling. So just the address and so on. So this is just basic information, but the first topic is that you're learning now that in the cloud, first of all, we have apps. Second, we have administration center for users from where we can add specific people within our company. And here, the whole idea is that after we have created a user, guess what? And we added, by the way, the license is for Dynamics 365. So this is basically the idea, right? So by adding a license to a user, this means that they can now access to Business Central. And here, from here, we're going to be able to start working with security. So that's a differentiation from the on-premises installation, regular installation, let's call it. And well, so second, I'm going to stop or leave this part for Office 365. Now that you understand the criteria behind all of this and why we should do that, I wanted to show you a thing about the license and the applications. But let's go and now work with the regular installations for those of you who work on your own servers. We install NAB in your on-premises from where we install a client, we install and we connect the application to SQL and so on. So this is what we call on-premises just because we work in your server and with your internal security with Active Directory, if you use it as well, or if not, well, we can actually just work with SQL security as well. I'm not gonna go in depth with SQL security today. I'm just gonna continue. Oh, excuse me. Also, after I have added the user in Office 365, I'm accessing to Business Central at this point, and I'm getting the new users from my Office account. Just that. So if you open your in the cloud a client, look how I have brought here with this with the source of our administration center, the user now to the application. So first we create the user in the Office 365 account and then add it to the app directly. Here now I'm opening the on-premises client, And here also, once you have opened this, you are already you already have seen this client before. I'm pretty sure about it. And here I'm going to have to as well, by opening the client, just bring my from my Active Directory, in this case, any of the users that I want. I'm just finding from the directory my specific user, in this case an administrator, right? So we have a user, okay? This is a user card in this case. We need to input the specific information. And in this case, in both in Business Central in the cloud and on-premises, you can enable the users and select the license type. The license type as well, today we'll be working with full users. In this case, an administrator is the easiest one, just to start learning the learning path, but we have different type of licenses as well, just for you to know, where you could have external or internal users. Basically, you could have a password, and guess what, also we can just work with web services if you would like to bring an Office 365 authenticated user, and also work here in this on-premises. Now, because NAV at this point also works with Business Central, and it's a mixed flavor, right? Here, I'm just adding a permission set. I'm going to show you later in this presentation how to create specific permissions, because we need to go in detail. And here you can add the company for the user, or you can add more than one if you need, right? So the whole idea is that first, when we create a user, we do not also get rid of the general information, the license, but also the access with permissions and to the companies, all right? Don't forget that, because we're not gonna come back later with these specific concepts, okay? So once we understand, we create a user, how do we do it? Here you can check the video and continue doing your own tests in your environment. And as you can see, it's quite easy. So also you can, I recommend you to go in the how to create users NAV manuals that we provide, which have completely and full understanding of every field. So we can, I strongly recommend you to, after this presentation, go into in depth about these specific functions. But take the idea, this is Active Directory, open your client and add a company immediately. And we're gonna, before going, of course, talk about the permission sets, because this is so important for the security part, that this is actually, the permissions are the core, okay? So a user is a user, we just add it, but the actual understanding of today's webinar will be the heart in the permission side. Now, let's come back. For me, when I add a user to as well Business Central, what I do mainly is create, also we have groups. This is now for both. The only differentiation for me in the understanding and explaining this is that we get the source of our users from different, in the cloud or in your Active Directory. From now on, in this webinar, everything will be exactly the same for both platforms, okay? What is a user group? How do we add it? And how do we use it for? Let me explain you while we actually perform the activity here. This is Business Central in the cloud, but as well, this is not different for you on-premises. You have a search function where you could open just user groups, do the same in your client. And the whole idea to have the user group, look at this. We have for the main, we have templates for different activities. So the people have different roles. They work in finance and security, administration of the ERP, purchases, sales, and we have already created a different screens and permissions so you can use them. And the whole idea is that once you work with the groups, you should just come, you can create your own or use any of the current groups that we have, right? I'm just at this point create a new one where, well, I'm taking a look that I have a sales people here, but I don't have a sales manager, right? So you come and give a code for your group, new group that you are creating. Just think about if it's administration, finance, and so on. So Since I don't have a manager, this is the first thing I will be creating. So I will differentiate. Basically, it's about between managers and normal clerks, right? Who will be helping you within your team. And but they could be having like different rights. For instance, this manager maybe could create or could post and create records like new customers, right? But our regular salespeople sometimes cannot even see some specific information from the customers, or in order to make sales operations, the manager is not going to be able to create users. It depends, how you want to do it. Basically, we just add to every group all of the users that we want. And yes, they can be part of more than one group if required. I'm just adding here one user that is going to be part now of the manager user group, okay? So the whole idea is that preferably we just work with one user being assigned to one group, remember that? So they also work in this way. Now I'm going to sign out of the administrator user, and I'm going to access as a new user that was assigned as a sales manager. So you can see how everything is like understood here, because here as well, we are working in the cloud. I'm going to access with my credentials from Microsoft Office 365, but to the Business Central application, right? So you can see my email that I have created here. We are accessing with an email. In your Active Directory and for your on-premises application will be with your Windows login, basically. You don't have to do anything. The idea is just exactly the same functionality. So just maybe the screen is different, but it's not going to be an issue if you just go and create the users, and we have the same fields and basically the same information. Here, Noé de la Cruz, the new user who's a sales manager, can only see sales data. So what I have here, well, the 5 customers in this chart, the favorite sales accounts, and this user now start to work with this. But since we don't have assigned any permission, he cannot yet perform any activity. This is just what we call the role center. I have assigned a role center to this user. I'm going to show you in a moment, just giving you an understanding. Once we create a user, we assign it to a user group, pre-configured user group, who has this screen, who has this type of activity, so he can just see per specific information. And if you add the same user to another group, for accountants, administrators, they will be seeing different screens. So we start with this. This is the very first, okay, for you to take this idea. But then once we add the user group, for me, the only thing that I'm going to start explaining now. Okay, you have seen that a user was assigned to a specific group for sales, and now he can see that screen because it was pre-configured, but you can create your own if you want. Okay, this is more advanced. I'm not going to be showing how to more customize, but everything is customizable, okay? Everything. So you can come up with the idea of a specific sales manager that example, which is always possible. I'm just saying that it's customizable. Now, let me explain you 2 main concepts for you to take. We have, first of all, a profile. So we have a collection of users who are share the same role center. Okay, so you saw the sales manager role center a few seconds ago. So the whole idea is that behind that screen, because that was just a screen, we need to generate some permissions to be able to create sales orders, invoices, create customers, whatever you need for that person. We have already some pre-configured permissions. So I'm going to show you how it is very, very easy to assign in order to create the specific and correct profile, all right? Because now we'll be using the profile word in order to create a profile, so you have the idea. It's just the design of the activities for the specific users, right? And then we have a role center, is the screen you saw before. It's a type of a page in which you can place different parts. Each part is a container in which you can host other pages, predefined system parts. such as an Outlook part, another part to adding task, notification, specific charts. So you can also add menus, all right? So the role center is the screen, but behind that, we might add functions and permissions that will be creating the specific profile for you. So let's go directly to be able to really understand these two concepts. Okay, I'm going to show you some examples for profiles. It is very, very easy. The first is in this screen, in this picture, you can see that I have like different type of users who perform different activities starting from the accountants. Okay, so this is a created profile, and the default profile accountant will be working with the chart of accounts and so on. Okay, the whole idea is that all of these profiles have different permissions. They have different screens. So they have a different profile and they have a different role center. All right. Now let's continue and go to the second part of the webinar. After these basic concepts, I want to take you and give you a tour of the permissions and security level. Still functional, not yet going into the technical SQL or more advanced security parts of Active Directory, which is also security, but at this point it's quite still functional, where we are going to make specifically configurations within our clients. So I'm going to show you the permissions. Okay, permission are assigned to sets, permission sets depending on the plan assigned to the user in Office 365 Business Central or NAV. You can then proceed to assign permission sets, so to the users to define which database objects and thereby which UI elements they have access to, and in which companies. When you add users or users groups, that will make it easier to assign the same permissions sets to multiple users. A permission set is a collection of permissions, so it's not one. It's different things, but we still call it our permission is a permission set, okay? To specific objects in the database, all users must be assigned one or more permission set before they can access to Business Central. So topic also for today is to review what kind of permissions we have. We have a permission to access to Business Central, like in this case, which is the first permission we add. And from now until we have a super user who can, the super user can do everything, we will have then different levels of security. And for you to take that note, we can make security on every specific field until that you can manage objects like tables, talking about the specific database parts, rows, lines, records, dates, and so on. But also we have other objects. So for instance, different buttons can be assigned or can be canceled and so on. Okay, that's customization. That's the last part of, not in this webinar, but in another webinar, I'm going to show you how to customize. And in specifically a Business Central in the cloud, we also need to work also with extensions, all right? Now, in this case, from the user card page, you can open defective permissions. I'm going to show you that every user have and will have different permissions, okay? And we add them in the user directly or in our group. So let's talk about permission. Business Central solution typically contains several predefined permissions. We have them, they are already configured. You just can say, oh, here is a permission to use the chart of accounts. Okay, let's add it to the account tab. So it's like using blocks, okay? So I'm gonna show you that. But first, we have predefined permission sets that are of the following types. First of all, the permission system and extensions for Business Central only, right? So in our environment, if we talk about a system permission, it's because it's our own environment, but we could also, only for Business Central, come up with and take the idea that you could add more functionality. There are other systems. Let's talk about very often used Jet Reports. We have an extension in Business Central that so we connect then the extension Jet Reports to your environment, all right? And you could, from our security control, some specific access to specific information to, yes, to Jet Reports. And in on-premises, this could be quite different because we know Jet Reports has its own security activities. So if you are working on premises with Jet reports, you should be sure that you handle that from the Jet reports application. Now, you cannot create or edit these types of permission sets or the permissions within them, okay? What are we saying here? Just for you to know. We have system and extension permissions, but since we are pre-configured, you cannot just modify them. Nevertheless, what we can do is we can copy the original permission, so then we can just copy it, create a new version, and define our permission sets, and it has its logic, right? So, well, permission sets that the user create are of the type user defined. So we're going to see that in a moment when we check our permissions in the system, that some of them are system, some of them are extension, and some more of them are user defined. So now you know which ones you can edit for your own convenience or for testing purposes while you are learning. And let me take you to the last part of this explanation before we go to the demo. First of all, we have different type of access. The first row options. We can add permission to read. Basically, all dynamic products have this: to insert, to modify tables, delete records, or yes, basically records, and executing permissions. Execute means that, for instance, for a posting of an invoice, as an example, you can execute that action. So we talk about an object that we call, technically called unit, but it is just an action to perform an activity like posting, registering, creating as well. So these are the different options that you have for every object. Let's talk about the customer. You could add a permission and block anyone to read, to insert a customer, to modify or delete customers, right? An executing permission would be more related to, for instance, generating a report, to open a specific window, to post an invoice, so you select them. Now, in the second line, we have yes. Yes, the user can perform the action of the object. So that's very logic, it's yes or no, basically, and we're going to show you that now. We have a type of permission in the line number 3, indirect. What is that? The user can perform the action on the object in question, but only through another related object that the user has useful. After this, it's not quite explanatory, this part, but let's say that we have sometimes the necessity of working within a specific process. Let's talk about a payment. Or an invoice as well. Sometimes some people don't have the right to create a document, all right? But what if they come up with the idea of using another system tool to generate that, and that's going to be a solution for the user. Let me explain you. Somebody cannot create a purchase order, all right? Why? Because the whole idea for some companies is that they create specific purchase orders only with the replenishment function. And we have a module where they have different engines that take a review of the purchasing data, then to create purchase orders automatically. So you don't want to have purchase orders created manually, but still you want to replenish. Okay, let's add an indirect option to this user to create purchase orders. So he's not going to be able to create them manually anymore. Blank, the last option, the user cannot perform any action. Okay. Last but not least, before going to the demo, I want to take you, we have the capability to record permissions. You might be thinking, after this long explanation, when I go and try, this webinar was not what I need, because I'm going to spend the following year learning tables, learning fields. This is a system that is very complex, like any a solution that I'm going to say that is decent, right? But now we have a recording action it's a tool where we are going to be able to just open the window, and a user can ask us, can you give me a permission to do a specific tasks? Since we are administrators, we don't often get to understand the specific vocabulary of or the criteria the user actually wants to add a permission, right? So we can ask the user, let me show you, give me an idea of what you actually want, access the system, start doing your actions, go to the different screens you want to access and open the record, what action you want to delete, to create, and whatever you would like to do. And with this tool, we will be recording those actions, while behind the scene Business Central is going to start checking the specific objects that the user used throughout the process to then add a permission, all right? So basically it's the recording tool for you specifically to start learning, to see, oh, if a user created a purchase orders, what will be the related tables? Since I'm just checking, we have a lot of relationships for those of you who are SQL guys, we have plenty of relationships for many fields. So what we don't want when we talk about security, we don't want to forget about those relationships. That's when the security levels actually come quite cumbersome. Okay, we don't want that anymore. That's when we use the recording actions tool before actually assigning to any user the accesses or permissions. We verify that the information within this tool also give us the entire set of tables related to the actions and the fields related to the actions a user requires, so we don't have later issues. So with that, we finish with this, and I'm going to just open now the system in order to start working with permissions, all right? I know this has a lot of concepts. I know this is not exactly like go and start working and just follow. We need to understand a couple of things before. So what I'm going to do now is, after we created our users and our first permission group, our first user group, I'm going to open my permission set for you to start checking what do we have here. The permission sets, then we said, it's a set of different activities that a user can perform, and they actually they are specifically created for different profiles. All right. Let me show you. Before going to directly to the permissions, let me better show you the roles. This will make it easy for us to understand. Okay. You can assign all these profiles. Let's take a look. A list of profiles: accountant, AP coordinators. Let me maximize this. Okay, all of these users are part of your current configuration in this case, Business Central and Dynamics NAV on premises. So these profiles then definitely are going to be, at least in the very beginning, added to your users. Okay, so we have accountant added to all the accountants. Okay, later in a second phase we can just go with more advanced functionality. AP, AR, administrator, security managers. So let's take a look at this, and here the whole idea is, with all of these specific roles that are currently available, just take a look either also in NAV on premises, type the word profiles in the searching tool for you to check what do we have here. And before going to the permissions, the whole idea is that you come and check the users that you have. In Business Central on premises, we just do exactly the same, all right? Let's go to the users created or the user groups that we saw before. And I'm going to just, let's open one of the users, Megan Bowen. Okay, the general data, general information, the full name is Megan Bowen. Here you're going to need an email, don't forget it. And here, this user is part of one user group, Business Premium and the troubleshoot, okay? So you might be having an idea of what kind of a user is this, okay? We have users, you could add an accountant here. The previous profiles that we saw before are here. So this could also be an administrator, why not? look at this, Business Central full access, the same roles exist for on-premises. Just add them and start working with them, and it's now your work to start working and testing how they actually are pre-configured. I strongly recommend to use the pre-configured functions first. And here in the user permission sets, they came here into this list once we added the specific profile. What happened here? That every profile have the accountants, for instance, have specific access to different sort of activities in the system and different areas, all right? So since I have added the user to different roles, user groups, then also the user permission sets will be here below. And here you need to add the permission for, in this case, well, I added the accountant user group as an example, right? So go into the user permission tab and add the accountant permission. What is this? Why do we have these two windows? The user group, the profile, contains the screen that you're going to be presenting. Okay, buttons, charts for the accountant, the access and the chart of accounts menus. So it's all about the screen. And here the permission in the accounts a part in the permission sets, you have then a pre-configured a accounting role, so they can open the registers in the GL, for instance. Okay, so we are talking about basic tables here. So, but for you to take the idea, whenever you create a user, you're going to need these two specific features. Okay. Also, let me just go and do exactly the same. You need to assign those permissions before going in depth with the permissions part. And I'm going to open the user groups. To be honest, we don't necessarily need to work on a user level. That would take ages to predefine. But nevertheless, work with your user groups. Okay, first, okay, if I have plenty of accounting people, why don't we just create first a user group? And guess what? What we have here for this specific group of users, here we have the permission set as well. All right. So it's the same thing, but look, we have added the for this accountant, the accountant permissions. Then the basic permission, just take this idea. Every user must have this specific permission, all right? Either if it's on premises or in the cloud, the basic role, the basic permission is the access. Otherwise, they won't be able to open. And even if they have access within your Active Directory or within the Office 365, while they open the window, they will be then finding a black window. So remember, this is still basic. So that's why I'm giving this idea of these basic permissions. And also the local, this will be very important to add for specific local functions when they exist. If you know that you have a localization, please add this specific permission to the group or to the user. Hopefully that's explaining in a very basic way what do we have to configure in first place. So to make it easier for you, the learning process, I'm presenting first the pre-configured, and you know what an accountant does. You might more or less need to understand which tables, and this is the last part actually. We will need then to at the end start learning about tables, fields. All right, so I'm not saying that it will be the easiest part of the configuration, but this is necessary for also plenty of activities, reporting. For your applications, you need to understand if you have extensions or access from another applications to the data, right? Well, in Business Central, from here you configure the access. For instance, if you attach to the Business Central the Jet Reports application, be sure that you have specific permissions. And guess what? We have, yes, a specific set of permissions for different applications as well. That's why before going into the on-premises part, I'm also showing this for you to take the idea that there are also extension permissions, all right? So let's go back now to the permissions. Also, I'm going to open the on-premises client, don't worry. So you can see that everything that I'm explaining is also there. Permissions. And we have the effective permission sets first. When I open the permission sets window, now what we do here is that we have a set of different, let's talk about now the accounts payable. Receivable accountants as well. Okay, what we have here, we basically have now our permissions. This is the core of the any activity. And guess what? If you take a look, we have access to the permission sets. And here also we have pre-configured permissions. Here is for Jet Reports as an example, which is an application. I don't know. And if you see that we have the word D365, this is directly a system, internal system security. So now we have different type of permissions for systems and permissions for extension like Jet Reports. Then guess what? In the right side of my accounts payable permission set, here I have some specific objects of my database. Okay, let's take a look at these tables. This is just a preview, by the way. Okay, from where we can see the object ID number of the specific table and object name. All right, standard, general. These are just SQL tables. Okay, so that's why then before I recommend you to later take a look at these tables. At least we have different ways that you can learn how the information flows, which is a very good thing. I'm going to show you at last some tips. But here, tenant permissions. This is not for the specific tenant configuration is not for on-premises. This is for Business Central. Business Central is going to help us to create different tenants. A tenant is just a new environment that we have for Business Central with a set of different applications with different, yes, basically application, but they are different accounts that you could have and create. Microsoft allows now in the cloud to have different tenants for a company. So in this case, I'm just showing this could be also part of since you can now connect to different tenants, all right? But this is really only on the cloud training. At this part, this is more or less related to concepts, to ideas for you to take. Now, what I'm going to do and what I wanted to do since the very beginning of this presentation, this is the most important, the permission. The permission, actually the core of the configuration. Here, the accounts payable, I'm going to just open the window for the permission that this user has, or this set of permissions currently have. And this is it. Okay, we have it here, the table information, the objects, basically the object ID is coming from SQL, the name of the table, as you can see here. And for instance, we have a table that is called currencies, where the user create and we, when do an implementation, we import all your currencies, okay? What do we do here? If this user, the accounts payable people, of course, or at least in my opinion, should be able to read the currencies. So when they see the list of currencies, of course, they need to have read permission. So read permission to the specific table. Remember, at this part is to the table. And yes, we have also two specific fields. But also here, insert permission, this will be yes, no, or the concepts we explained before, we have indirect access. For instance, the GL entry. This accounts payable clear for let's talk about now some functionality. They cannot post, in this case, any record to the GL entry table. The GL entry is a table where we handle just the information registered to the GL through a GL account, the chart of accounts. The accountants work with that list, and then we, through a specific operation, we make registers or we generate records for the chart of accounts into this table. Then this specific user cannot anymore, if we add the insert indirect permission, he cannot directly come into the system and open a manual journal to post into the chart of accounts. He would need to use, we have this for you to know, administrators of the security. We have possibly different engines, in this case for EP, to generate payments. They have another window that is going to help to generate payments, okay? We call it for the payment journal, where they could be generating a specific records into the GL entry, but through that journal. You can ask me then later if you want, if you have doubts about what I'm referring to when I call indirect. This is the sometimes cumbersome to understand, but let's handle this. For the users, at least add an indirect permission when you want to make some verifications that the user simply, or any user simply add any manual record to any type of a entry permission. Now, these entry tables are all over the system. We have for accountants, we have for items, we have for different vendors, customers, an entry table. Look at here, customer ledger entry, a vendor ledger entry. Those are tables where the records are done from the different transactions. But also, let's talk about the type of vendor table. This is just a catalog. Many of you in the different implementations gave us, or you are also creating vendors, and this is just a list. This is a catalog that we just import, and that's it basically. So this table doesn't generate further records other than the vendors you actually require. All right. So in this case, it's very easy to understand that we have the possibility for these people to read the information, read the vendor list in the system, but they cannot create vendors because they do not have the insert permission. Modify, yes, and delete, yes. So this is very common setup. These people in the accounts payable might or might not be able to create vendors. Now, if you implement security, then you need to decide if they are going to be able to do so. Just as an example. So first, review your catalogs, which people can create records, which people can work. Maybe we have a lot of tables that are that contain catalogs, all right? But we also have transactions tables, so you should add an indirect procedure, okay? So indirect permission to insert as an example, just giving you some tips, all right? We also have some tables where we manage our process like sales operations, sales header, sales line, all right? So guess what? This person, if you guess now what he can do, he can, in this case, create and read the sales order, yes, okay? I'm talking about the sales lines. He can as well make corrections, insert, modify permissions. This is to update and or delete, all right, basically. But here, you could check what you want, basically, for a specific documents. Some people cannot create sales orders. Some people you might not want to be able to delete. Maybe they only some specific clerks. The sales people can only work with this, all right? And you could be really, you can create very structured security. Like there is people that cannot even read the sales documents, okay? So nobody can see the customers. That's another example. You don't want anybody to see the vendor information, right? Except for the accounting or the purchase payables, and I don't know what type of user, all right? So you create a group for purchasers and for accounts payable clerk, and for the vendors, only assign the yes permission and add it, all right? Now, in this case, these are the type of permissions, but also, if I talk about this part, here, the permission system and extension cannot be changed, okay? I cannot modify this. Look at this, this is predefined, the 365 accounts payable, okay? For you to start them working by yourself, what you would need to do is just copy it. Okay, we were working with the user I created before we talked about the sales manager, all right? So what I want now is create a new permission. Let's do it now. Sales manager. Let's try to work now with the nomenclature D635 sales manager. So we know that this will be for my system, but this is user defined. Okay, sales and marketing permission set. Okay, what I want for this type of permission, they want, and they should read the sales orders, they should create customers, they should create invoices. So let's then just, there should be a sales, reconfigure salespeople maybe here. All right, for the sales manager, oh, I should have, excuse me, I should have created here first the new role, sales manager test. And okay. And here is, oh, let me also delete some of them. And when I come here into the permissions, one second here, I'm looking for the sales manager, sales. Oof, we have dozens. Here it is, sales document edit, sales document posting, sales document setup. All right, so I would like to have different permissions to be able to read information. I'm creating this manually, by the way. So this will be somehow the first type of configuration you want to do. Now, in this case, what I'm going to be adding is just the tables that you want in this case, and one by one start to include the just, indirect. This is the payment terms. So you would like to, for instance, this user cannot modify the payment terms as an example. And he neither should be, he shouldn't be able to delete them, all right? But the whole idea is that you would need to come in your first configuration. You will need to start adding table by table by table. Okay, this is the old-fashioned way. But oh, let me also, excuse me, also the other client, in order to create my first permission set, like I was doing. But in this case, I would like to, I was forgetting about this client. And here, my permission set will be requiring as well. Let me just prepare exactly the same in both. Sales manager. So we have the sales manager permission set. And let's go to the permission part. Okay, this is just exactly the same. We have an option to start recording. Okay, so before I was just showing you how to include a table, but I'm going to go into that anymore. Actually, what I wanted to show you through the webinar is that we're going to be starting to record now the different permissions, because there's no point in showing you now the tables, since you need to, well, at least in first place, learn the tables so we can just be in depth with how the information flows. But it's more important for now to learn how actually, without knowing that specifically, we can still work and be our own security consultants and work by ourselves without issues. In order to do so, I created in the on-premises customers, excuse me, I was just only working in the cloud, but it's better to do it now here in the on-premises client, but it's the same, right? By creating a sales manager, I'm going to add my permissions and I'm going to start recording now. Here we have a start button to start recording my activities from the client or UI to generate the required permission sets in this area. Okay, so we have tables, we have fields, we have a lot of information. Okay, and also you could, very important, add read permission to related tables. All right. The chart of accounts might have a link with the payment term, with the currency as an example. So we want also that. Otherwise, we could be having some errors. So if we get to know the tables or the fields, we need them, okay? And I'm going to click on start. Basically just that. And going to open, this is the sales manager. I want the sales manager to be able to create customers. I'm going to call the user. Now, okay, you're the sales manager, come here, please help me perform your activities that you will be doing on a daily basis. First of all, create a list of activities. The first one will be creating a customer. the customer list now in the native client in the on-premises, and here you have new, edit. You need all these functions, new, edit, and delete. So you would need to then, first of all, use these functions. First, I'm going to create a new customer, and by adding and actually doing the new, clicking on the new button, the recording tool is understanding, oh, this is for an inserting function, okay, to a specific action, specific pages. Specific action is inserting into what? The customer card, or behind the scene, the customer table. So this is testing customer, all right? Basically that. You would need to add all to every field that you want to work with. For instance, the address, here is just general information, right? And so on. Okay, I would like to just work normally within the page, all right? You would need to actually come here and use a normal client. So payment terms, okay, I will be working with this, a payment terms code, a bank transfer, reminder, well, that's for another thing, print statements, okay, just tell the user that he should create a customer in a normal way. Basically, that's the idea. Why not? We also would need to create a sales invoice, okay, just can do it directly from here. Let's click on the sales invoice. We have an option from the customer to directly create the sales invoice. And here, a sales invoice form or page was open. This means that behind the scene, the recording tool is understanding also the sales invoice, which has a header and sales line tables behind the scene, will be I need to add a permission to be able to insert information into these tables. So for this invoice, I'm going to include just some items. This is a test. This can be then credited just to make the security configuration with the recording tool. Just basically that, right? So it's not complicated. Once you have just created that, you just register your sales invoice, and voila, you're having some specific permissions related to the specific activities that you are actually performing, okay? Remember that yet we don't know any information about tables of fields or the SQL information, but also it's important to generate, remember, we do not only have insertion or editing or inserting permissions, we also have deletion permissions. Don't forget that, the type of permissions that we have. Because we also would need to delete a user if we want to have that record added. So it's not like just come and everything will be understood immediately. You would actually would need to perform some activities. Okay, let me create a new user just because that user was used to create an invoice and it currently has a balance that needs to be created then later. But for now, it's just adding this new user for the test. So it's created and I'm just going to delete now this record. Just basically that. Once I have just finished my customer and my invoice directly from the client, I just need to stop my recording tool. I have come back to the permissions window where I remember just click on the start button to start recording. Basically, I just did that. Here, I'm just stopping the recording and I'm just gonna click on yes if I want to insert everything. What has happened here? We have generated a list of different lines with the content of these lines in the object ID. These are different objects, an object type. Let's take a look. I cannot open this function. But we have different types where I have pages. For instance, when I open in this case, look, I have opened the customer table, we have the payment terms, GL entry indirect. Now you learn because when I was creating an invoice, I never impacted the GL entry directly. I never opened a GL account even, but look at here, I have access to the GL account now. Why? Because what I did is click on this add rate permissions related tables. When I generate an invoice, I could, if I want, generate an invoice with a GL account. Okay, that's why this was added. I strongly recommend you to go with the users and just with the help of also of them, start working on this until your permission is fine. Because after you do this very basic setup, you will need to add and make some rearrangements, okay, to the specific work that you will be doing here with security, okay? Now, not only that, now to the sales header and to the sales line tables, you can now insert lines, you can modify lines, and here, the sales header can be also deleted, but let's take a look. This is very important to start learning. The sales line, in this case, the recording tool didn't understood what we actually wanted. I really would like to be able to delete a sales line if I wanted to. Okay, so this type of very basic configurations needs to be tested before we actually just released a permission set. Okay, and once we have just done that, now let me open exactly the same menus, but now in this client. Files. Here we also have the specific profiles and so on. So you don't have you can see the video either if you also have on on-premises or in the cloud a type of independently of the version, this functionality is just exactly the same, right? So you have here your profiles. Let me show you the groups as well. Oh, this is the groups. This is user groups. Okay, here we might be having the users that you create. Remember the permissions that we created before? Okay, what we can do now is that, okay, we have this 365. I want to be clear, you cannot import the permissions from the Business Central in the cloud and import them here, all right? These are just completely different technologies. So even though it's the same product, it's not the same in the cloud as it is in on-premises. Now, in this case, I have added one permission that I have just created, but also we have a user group. Before going in and review more other complexity, you would need to come after you create your basic permissions and come here into the user group and review the permissions that every set has, all right? Here are the basic permissions, okay? So here you can add whatever, all the permissions that you have just created for this user group. And here, the whole idea is that you might, and you wouldn't just require to add, okay, the accounts payable permission that I have created as an example. Here is a, what's this? We have plenty of permissions, okay. I cannot just search within here for now, but you will need to find your permission, and let's talk about the basic one, okay? Okay, the basic permission here is in order to access to the system, okay? You will need to add it to all of the groups, this permission set, all right? Here you have a button to add to all users. So the basic permission, which can open my client, should be added to all my roles, okay? To all my permissions. Let's take a look because here are my permissions, but and in a matrix combined as well with the user groups. So with this, you would avoid adding just a permission to every user. Unless you want to be really, really specific, I would strongly recommend that you use this matrix. We call it the permission sets by user group. So create a group, and in one side add the users that we did before, and in the other side, just immediately with this checkbox list, add the permissions that this user group should have. So with that, you will be immediately implementing, and just with some testing behind the scene for your permission sets, once you create them, you can consider that you can just generate a link to the permissions and the people that will be using them in a group, so you can in tandem just generate, for instance, I would like to add the accountants, the accounts payable and the accounts receivable functions, basically those three. So they can just review and create the payables, invoices and receivable transactions. So they don't actually just tie to the general. So basically that's the whole idea behind the basic understanding of security, how to create users, create your user groups, and then understand that it's ideal to work with a user group to generate permissions in tandem to the sets of users that you might have in any group. Now, also this could be tied to a specific table. The permissions, you can include them, and if you don't yet get a full understanding of the tables, please use your recorder that is going to be helping you to add not only the tables that the user requires, but the related tables so you don't have issues. But verify this, then later with the permissions, configure them and test with the users if it's exactly what you require. Because later the users normally ask you, hey, I like the permission you created, but just for that particular transaction, don't give permissions to everybody, only for me, as an example. That's typical, you know, it's only for me, this permission. So come here as well, and you can actually create by in tandem the groups. But if you open the user, these have more priority. If you open any user, more priority, the permissions over a specific, let's see what this user have. The permission added to a user has more priority than the permission generated for a group. Let's take a look at the user manager, okay? And let's take a look. This is not Active Directory. This is my own laptop name. I'm having just a local environment, but he's a full user. So basically talking about the permissions, the topic that I was actually explaining, here we also have the permissions, not only in the group, but in the user card level. But look at here. In this specific, this user could be part of a group. Let's say he could be an accountant as an example. All right. This manager is an accountant as an example, but behind the permission set added is a super user. All right. So even though you might have created a specific role and specific permissions for your group of accountants, in the user you have added the super a role, pre-configured role that you have. Then the idea that this user, nevertheless, he was added to a group, has its own permission. In this case, he can access to and do any action in the system because he's a super user, all right? So don't forget about the priority of permissions. Now, when I talk about the last topic, the security, the last topic is auditing the change logs, okay? What it means, when I actually record everything that I do with security, I would normally need to sometimes verify who's making changes. Even though I have security, sometimes, for instance, within a team of people who is actually working with the same transaction, you still would like, in some cases, to verify who's doing what, okay? So you can enable an auditing tool in Business Central and on premises, so you have a history of activities. The log is based on changes that are made to data in the tables, okay, basically that. So we were talking about everything is to the point where we review data and field information. So we need to configure a change log setup for entries that are chronologically ordered and show changes that are made to the field on the specific tables, right? So let's go there. This is the last part of our webinar. Here I need to just navigate into the change log setup. The change log setup is just a simple checkbox actually. With this, we are activating that the system is going to record what every user does. Let's take care sometimes of this, specifically if you have a lot of transactions and you consider that sometimes it's quite slow. But basically, what we can monitor, nevertheless, we can have control. The system, if we just click on the changelog activated, can control everything that every user does. But guess what? This is going to be generating thousands of records, as you can imagine, okay? So the whole idea, now we are in the on-premises client still, all right, but still in the cloud is just exactly the same function. We might have different tables as well from where you would like to then review and record in your logs whenever you want to review what every user has done. You might, I strongly recommend you to at least do it on the documents, who created a sales or a customer, the catalogs and the documents, a vendor purchase orders, so you can start auditing at least the basics. But here what would you be doing is in the table IT tracking command. This is for me a table where I would be knowing, maybe this is not the most important table at this moment, but okay. Okay, sales prices. There might be one person working with the sales prices table, or in other words, somebody is in our items list and sales price list working with the prices, is updating, and you would like to check who's doing that, when they did that, just for audit purposes, all right? So you could, in this case, to the sales price, let's track all the fields. If somebody modified and insert in the sales price something, this tool is going to review every field in that table. If somebody modifies the table, please, let's take a look at all the fields and in deletion as well. But you can also add, if you want, some fields, just so you will need to click on which fields you want to track, all right? So, well, at least, I don't know, who's deleting the unit price. Basically, I will be and the currency code, tracking what any user does for this type of operation, all right? And just click on the checkbox, change log activated, so you can just immediately start tracking that, that information, okay? At this point, whenever anybody does anything in the system related to the sales price, this will be tracked, all right? Let me show you, this is a demo environment. I'm going to show you some entries. Once this was just activated, you have a list of entries generated by the system for this tool, where you can see what anybody did in the system. For instance, I was working previously with, you can see first of all, date and time. This will be reviewed first. In this case, basically you need to work with the time and the date, very important. Somebody work with the change log setup. Somebody work with the permissions. Somebody work with some accesses here. Somebody access to the system in some companies. So basically what I'm doing here is just tracking what my users are doing. So the user Dell, who is actually me working behind the scene, is the Dell user working, all right? And he is actually working, making some deletions, insertions, all right, to these specific tables, all right? Let's review access control. Somebody did some changes into these tables because I was creating some permissions to the sales manager. So this was tracking that somebody was creating in the table that is called permission, and he inserted something that is called sales M, okay? So basically this is the log that you want to see. You would need to filter by date, time, and user to see sometimes, or sometimes you might be asking, who worked with my permissions table today? Okay, let's filter by the permissions table. By the way, here we have some permissions filters. Well, some filters here for all the fields that we have. So you might require to filter by user if you need. Who did something, the Dell purchaser. We have different list of users here, purchase 2, 1, administrator or manager. You want to see what anybody did before? Just filter and so on, all right? So the whole idea with the changelog entries is that you work with that date, time, and the specific tables that you are monitoring. So you can understand what they actually just did. And here are the actions: insert, modifications or deletions in some cases. It depends of what any user has been doing in the system for a specific period of time. So as you can see, there are thousands of permissions, records that here are just working with. But if you are administrators of the SQL database, I strongly believe that you might be backing up maybe this table. So if you want to use it, you know how many records, you can imagine how many records this is going to be storing. But anyway, you can still activate and change the log entries. Or if you think that the performance is not the best by using this function, well, you might need to test that within your company if you want it and start working with that. But for auditing purposes, this is the best tool because it's going to just record every activity that you do for tables, records, inserting, deletion. So just basically you have everything, right? So this is basically the lesson for today. I don't know if you have any further questions. This is our session. We are finishing today. And well, thank you very much for your time. Hopefully this is not this explanation that is full of concepts actually, but well, this is important. In this webinar, we didn't went into make many exercises, but this is basic of security. Later, we're going to be generating more webinars to review more advanced, maybe more exercises, right? But for now, please check this webinar for you to learn the basic concepts, the structures, and all these ideas that how to implement security for you. And thank you very much. If you want this material, my presentation or the video, please also ask me. Let me just show you my email for you to have it. You can write me here. I'm noed.wellman@optimus.guru. If you want to have any of the webinars that I'm presenting, I'm every week doing webinars for like this for all the topics that we have within Business Central and on premises for Business Central connected with the NAV. So please, I don't remember next topic. I believe that it will be related to finance. But if you have more questions, want material, an explanation, or a presentation directly with your specific doubts or training, just please call us, give me an email, and thank you very much for your time today. I don't know if somebody has a question on an inquiry about this topic for now. I know all of this is new, I understand that, but if you have any requests or questions, just please tell me so I can answer now to any of your questions, right? We're going to have a series of different webinars through every week in the future. You can also send me if you want to see I don't know, a new topic that is very important for you. We work from technical. We are many consultants working behind these webinars, and we will be very happy to help you with this to give you some informational webinars with this type of presentations for any of your requirements. All right. So, well, I don't see for now, we don't have questions for today. So thank you very much again. Have a nice day, and I hope to see you soon in any of the webinars in the future. So hoping to see you soon. Have a nice day, and thank you very much.